Who do I blame for getting behind buses? Myself, right? Me.
I need to move buses back 15 minutes.
It was Josh's.
Mr. DeVere.
I put it here.
What's that?
Did you read this?
Yeah, that's what I wanted you to do.
About the, this being streamed live.
No, it's all good. It's fine.
And there's rationale on the back of it. That's, you can look at that one.
Okay, perfect. All right,
We
we're
said
ready?
we don't care.
Yeah, I don't care. You ready to call to order?
Yeah.
All right. Minutes from 7/8/25. I was good with them.
Yeah.
You good? Approved? All right, nutrition detail profit loss.
Yeah, on the, passed out on your second page there, I got 2 pages on the financials from the nutrition department last year. We started taking corrective action, in regards to the previous year's losses, and kind of we're updating you on that. So this is looking at revenue, expenses, profit and loss, the margin, and then also adding our meals per labor hour last year by school. That's a common way they look at it. That's where you allocate a certain amount of hours to breakfast, lunch, and also à la carte, and you come up with meals per labor hour. You can see the changes that we put in effect for 25-26, and so we're confident that will have a big reduction in some of the expenditures and bring a lot of the schools back to about a level playing field on those meals per hour. There are a couple of schools that I'm digging into more details on this that look like they're a little bit out of whack. One is Manita, so I'm gonna do some more research on that. We are cutting back the hours there. They had a large capital expenditure this year. That happens every once in a while when we're installing things or major equipment. But you can see a lot of the other ones, anything over $10,000, I'd say is an anomaly that's not given each and every year. The other school that had a large capital was Liberty High School. We installed those dispensers where kids can go in and put in their ID and get a qualified lunch meal right from the dispenser. So those are a one-time expenditure there. But still looking at the meals per labor hour, I think I need to give some attention to Liberty High School. They're kind of low compared to the other high schools and middle schools, so we'll be working on that and making some changes probably there this year. Manita, I'm gonna do some more digging into there to see. Their profit loss was, the loss was significant compared to the others, and it should be more in line to probably where Huddleston is as a break-even operation. So I think the combination of the reduction in staff will help there, but on the second page, I'm looking at the material costs, food costs, and also other costs. And Manita was a little bit high there too, so working with that manager, trying to get that back down to a break-even proposition is what we're gonna be looking at. Liberty High should be a break-even or a profitable operation with school-wide lunches and breakfast being provided. And you can see really at the very top, or the third grouping of elementary schools, when it's not entirely free and reduced lunch or CEP school, none of those schools are really profitable. But we have made reductions in 3 of those schools to drive out the meals per labor hour, so.
Couple questions.
Yes, sir.
With the capital expenditures, that's equipment,
Yes, sir.
and that's on the P and L, not balance sheet?
It's all on the P and L. So everything that they expend in here on a cash basis is just flowing on there. So yes, it impacts the P and L when we report to the state. Yeah, any capital, any expenditure there goes on there.
Okay, yeah.
So,
'Cause that's gonna
and
drive
some
why
years
the
are gonna be
margin-
larger, some years
yeah.
it's gonna be smaller, depending on what we're doing at the school.
It's not a lot of revenue, and then you get decent capital expenditure, that's gonna
Yeah,
throw
if you
the
look at
margin.
Liberty High School, $40,000 is probably, it's more than what we do at the other schools. I'm thinking between, 1,000 and 5,000 per school per year is kind of like maybe in a not acceptable zone, but a normal zone. Anything beyond that, we're replacing major equipment. And like I said, Liberty High School, it was really the investment in those dispensers. I think there's 3 or 4 of them. Kids can go and type in their code and get a lunch. They don't even have to go through the line, so those are in the school now. So we're hoping that will drive up revenues, and they were installed, I think, in March of last year, so we really don't have a good trend on the revenues of that yet.
Showing the revenue and the food cost and the percentage of revenue, is that a true cost of goods sold, or is that a cost of goods purchased?
Purchased because we have in the inventory.
Do we do a beginning and an ending?
Yes, we do. I have to
Every
account
month?
for that. They do it each month, and then at the end of the year, I have to account for that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that's just a cost of goods purchased, it's not
Yeah,
really the food cost.
It's the, it's everything that was purchased during the year. Ending inventory would impact that and bring that down a little bit.
Okay, so that is, so, yeah, cause, I mean, without looking at it, if that's the case, I'm gonna assume inventory to start the year and end the year is the same.
I can add that. I have that data on the detail sheets. I'll add this for next time so we can look at what ending inventory is. That will impact that.
And then I would ask the people in charge over there, how much waste do we have, if they're, you know, cause that's a factor, what percentage of stuff is.
A lot of stuff just, it's, if you were to go into a cafeteria, and I've been in there, if it's not packaged and sealed, if it's like that, it can go back onto a share table. But anything else has to go in the trash, and to get a qualified meal, you have to have certain components on there, and they've gotta take it. And it's unfortunate, plus like to get a complete meal, you gotta take this, and the kid might not eat it, and that's gonna go in the trash. The other thing we'll have to watch as we go through our supplies on the styrofoam is that's not allowed anymore, so we're gonna have to deal with that this year. At a future meeting, I'll tell you what our plans are for that, but we have some supplies to, use up in that area, but it's gonna be a higher cost for those materials in the future, which is gonna impact it.
See if we can sell any styrofoam cups to Chick-fil-A, cause I am really upset that I don't get mine.
Yeah, I encouraged, Susan Quisenberry, our supervisor, said that actually applications in the Forest Zone, were coming in a lot better, they were coming in quicker than they were last year. We did do some marketing and making sure parents knew about that, so we were putting special emphasis on that to make sure people were filling those out. And I think she was pretty pleased. We'll see how that results, in our revenue in the end. But making sure people were aware of that, every possible, when parents were coming for the open night, to visit their teachers, making sure we were advertising that, please fill these out if you think you qualify. Even if you don't think you qualify, fill it out, maybe you will. So, and I drew attention to Manita that it looks like their percentage of revenue for the food and also on their materials, a little bit higher percentage than the others, so we're gonna go back and take a look at that. So this is data that I now have in summary format. We've got details on each school by month, but I wanna start bringing this to you periodically. So, we'll keep an eye on these, this level and knowing what's causing this.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure I understand. So expenses are made up of food, labor, and equipment?
Yeah, that's everything.
Alright, so the expenses are everything.
Anything that we paid cash for.
Okay, so then if I look at the second page, that's just the food expense?
Yes, sir.
So for example, Bedford Primary, total expense was $231K, food was $108K.
Yes, sir. And then incidental materials like supplies and stuff, 12. So we're separating that out. So the rest would have been salaries and benefits. But because I'm looking at salaries and benefits really on a meals per hour basis, not just basically, here's the expense. So I'm giving the overall P&L based upon total expenses, then I'm looking at what are the food, is that within reason or our target range? And our target range is that both food and incidental costs outside of capital will be right around the 50% range. A lot of these schools are hitting that, which I'm pretty pleased at. And then meals per labor hour, we're targeting somewhere around 13 to 15 or higher than that. So those that are below those meals per hour, we have to address and look at reductions in staff to deal with that.
I guess the only other question I have is like, as far as the free and reduced lunch, there's two zones that have it's a big percentage of that, right, is
Yes.
free and reduced.
Two zones are all.
Two zones are all,
The entire schools are,
Okay.
they call them CEP, but just so anybody that's watching that, doesn't mean you get the same reimbursement rate per school. It can vary greatly, depending on, the numbers for that school and the
Right, but do
poverty
we
levels
have
for that
it
school.
where our reimbursement is at least equal to
Yes.
our expense?
We actually have a calculator that the state gives, and then we can put in some assumptions on there that if a school goes entirely CEP, you should see a jump in lunches, because now it's free, you're gonna get more participation than when people were paying.
But my question is, are we getting money back? The dollar that it's costing, it says every expense dollar covered. So if we're gonna see increase in lunch, but are we getting dollar for dollar for everything we're spending for those lunches?
Before we move a school into CP, I'll try to answer that. Before we move it in, we'll go through an analysis of that school based upon the reimbursement dollars we're getting back compared to what's happening right now. So we may get, you're charging this amount for a full meal. So you're not gonna get that anymore. You'll get this reimbursed from the federal government, but you might go up, and you might go up and with participation, which drives up revenue. So if the overall revenue is coming in at a higher level than it was prior to going to a CEP, then that makes it a school that is something that we wanna move to.
But when we sell a lunch at full price,
Right.
we're not selling it at full price to break even, correct?
Most of it's, a lot of the modeling and what we're doing now, in the past, we were building up reserves, to be totally honest, but not huge reserves. The last 2 years, we've seen those erode. So actually, what we're charging right now is probably not even taking care of what's happened in inflation at this point.
So that's what I'm saying, so
That-
if
that was my
if it's
question.
$3 and it costs $3 to make the meal, we're operating at
We-
break even. If it's $3 to make it and we have to give it to them at $2.50, we're taking a 50 cent.
No, on the federal reimbursement side, you can see in some of the schools that are CEP, the revenue dollars are coming in, is paying for our staff and also the food prices to make it and everything. So we're profitable at most of those.
Okay, so,
In some of those, we've gone back, if you look at that sheet, we're making reductions in staff. So we anticipate those schools to be profitable, so that any school that's a CEP should be bringing in a profit and actually offsetting some of those schools that struggle to make a profit that are
yeah,
not.
cause I was looking, cause you would think that with the amount of students that we have at JF, we would have the highest amount of revenue there. And they're not. Stanton River, middle, has more revenue than they do. Even Bedford Elementary is fairly close, and Bedford Elementary was profitable. Stanton River was profitable, and
I mean,
JF was profitable, but only 2%.
I mean, when you look at some of those schools, kids going through the line for lunch, it could be 85%, 90% of the kids going through lunch. So you're getting a reimbursable for every one of those. Where at JF, you might have less than half going through, and they're being charged. Some are free and reduced with the application. So it's not a slam dunk. You have to do the analytics to see if you wanna move a school from, to a CEP school where it's all paid for. And it really depends on where the poverty level is, which drives that. So there's some that are getting closer, then some that are a lot further away. That would never, it wouldn't pay to move to entirely CEP. And by the code is that if that happens, then the locality has to make up the difference to the nutrition program to keep it at a break-even level. So that means you'd have to move money from operating over there to make sure it break even. So we've not pulled the trigger on those. We look at those other schools, especially in the forest area. We look at the schools to see what the levels are, to see if it would be a school that might qualify. And in the future, we may make a move to one. To see how that does. I think this board or this committee's asked, we'd like to see the results of making that change. We could either pull back from a school or move one in and see what the results are to really see what that change is. It's been quite a long time since we moved all the other schools to CEP, and I just don't have the data to do a proper analysis of that at this point.
I'm definitely interested in where we've got $93,000 loss understanding. I know you said you were
Yeah,
looking at that.
yeah, I'll bring back that, we put a lot of this together at the end, once we had the final data. And looking at this, the reduction in hours, the capital expenditure definitely drove that. But I think the food level, percentage of food and also incidentals was a little bit high on that school too. So we'll be giving some attention to training and watching the purchases at that school.
Is there any possibility of a consolidation of the lunchroom at Stanton River and Stanton High? Stanton River Middle and High School to,
Not big enough.
well, I'm not saying every student come in at the same time. I'm
There,
saying to consolidate like the staff and the food being prepared in one place.
prepared in one place. We have not looked at that. Both those schools are a little bit older, kind of small, I'd say.
Plus you run 3 lunches, so you'd be having to run 6 lunches, which means you'd have to start it, if you did it that way, you didn't
You would
combine it.
prepare it at the high school and move it over to the middle school, and they would come through the middle school line, but it's prepared at one place, so you cut down on this, maybe the cooking staff, the chefs and the people that are putting it together.
Right, but you'd
You'd
have to
still
give
have
one-
staff going through
You'd
the
have to give one
line.
school like a bag of lunch, right?
I know Lynchburg, I'm not 100%, but when you got a smaller city, I think they have a centralized kitchen and they just ship it out. We're too big for that.
No,
It's just
no, I get it.
problematic, but we can look at the schools that are close together and that there may be opportunity.
JF, Forest Elementary, Forest Middle, you know, having one location,
Yep.
moving the food. So it's just a thought. I mean, as we
a good
continue to
thought.
pinch dollars, we're gonna have to be creative.
That's what these meetings are for. I mean, we're trying to think of everything we can. We addressed, the hours and get into that. We're addressing the revenue, but if there's other things, we'll explore that. So I'll add that to our list.
How do you calculate the meals per labor hour?
There is a sheet that is, that Suzanne uses. When you're looking at it, it's a factor of so much for lunch, so much for breakfast, and so much for an à la carte.
Okay.
À la carte doesn't usually require a lot of labor hours, but you still gotta put it out there and account for it going through the line. So it's like if a lunch is a 1 factor, or breakfast might be a 0.75, and à la carte 0.25, and allocating all that. So it looks at the amount of meals you're serving and allocating that across. So there's a calculation for that.
What do you want to see?
We want it to get up, I'd like to see them all around, you know, if you see where some of the ones that are profitable, we wanna get them up to the 14, 15. The high schools and middle schools a little bit, they're bigger, so you don't need as many chefs, cause they're doing bigger quantities, you're up around the 20 mark. So we wanna see those get up. You can see Liberty High School, we need to get that one up, we gotta address that one.
And that is a good metric to use, we use that.
Yep. And state gives guidance on that, so we started applying that last year when addressing the issue, and that's why you see those reductions. I think Liberty High School was like, those new machines are coming out, we're seeing that that's gonna drive up revenues, and we'll see what happens there. But if it doesn't change, we'll be making some changes there too.
We would use meals per labor hour. That's what we use.
All right, well, we're keeping an eye on it, and I'll continue to brief you, probably coming back to you on this one, probably after the mid-year. I think the first quarter might be too soon to kind of present how we're gonna do the whole year. I can, but kind of just starting off. So that's my goal, and I'll look into centralized kitchens and see if that's a possibility. That's a good idea.
So the next topic that's on the agenda, should that not be in closed session?
It will be in closed session, I just put it on there because this committee asked me to look into it. I do have somebody doing an appraisal, I don't have it back yet, I hope to have it at the next board meeting,
Okay.
in which we'll add a closed session item for the full board to review. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
Okay.
I don't wanna go into any details because it is closed item.
Alright. Town park update, same thing, right?
Same thing, so just letting you know, I got some information back on that one, and so I can brief the board on that one at the next closing.
Okay.
So,
Preliminary enrollment numbers for 25-26.
this is very preliminary, the school year just started, but we watch the numbers because it drives a lot of our revenue from the state. And so we are a little bit down compared to budget right now, but some kids are showing up each and every day. So I'll be able to give a full briefing, probably at the board meeting, on where we usually go to the first 10 days, we look at the 10th day and say, that's gonna be a pretty good close cut of what we're expecting for the year, with some dropouts and, some kids leaving between here and the spring. And I actually get funded off our spring numbers, not these numbers. So it's a good gauge of how we're doing on budget, so I'll brief the full board. Right now, we're a little bit down
Down
But-
compared to spring numbers?
compared to what I budgeted.
Okay.
So, it's not catastrophic, but we're watching it, and each day we're getting more kids back in. So we're gonna wait for the first 10 days to come in to really kind of give a true read, and I'll brief the board probably at the next meeting. And give a dollar figure of how much less I'm gonna get from the state, and say, okay, then what do we do? What are some things, and that would come back to this committee, if you're gonna be down from the state, $1 million, what actions do we need to take place to bring this budget in on for the year? Because we do have to take actions if we're down that much. If we're down $100,000, $200,000, a lot of things change over the year, I'm not that concerned. Off a $125 million budget, 100 to 300,000. When you get close to $1 million, you gotta shut things down and make some tough decisions.
It's not that many kids to get to $1 million either.
No, it's about 9,200 per kid. So, it adds up quick.
How many are we down right now?
As of today, when I did it at noon today, 79 kids. So you're in 700,000 range. I expect that to come down, I hope. You could pick up 10 kids tomorrow. And that can be That's a lot of money.
It's better than 2 days ago.
It's better than 2 days ago, yes, so.
So just to let them know, what are schools instructed to do when no kids are supposed to be there and aren't there? Are they calling those kids, or they?
They have their protocols,
Like
Josh.
like it's kids that don't have their physicals yet, or it's kids that
Yeah, there are some of that, Dr. Cornett, I'll refer to you, you were a principal, so Dr. Calvert, what do you do?
Their secretaries are following up with our principals, calling, getting why they're not there, reasons of why they're not there, and trying to get the numbers accurate. If the child's not showing up, then they need to enroll in a different school. We haven't gotten those records, or we have gotten those records, those kind of things.
Right.
You can't count them present till they physically show up. So even though you expect them, you can't, they have to physically show up before you can start counting them.
Yeah, one of the things that I've seen that I think we need to be very cautious of is a lot of the social media tied to our schools are saying you have to have certain vaccines. That's not true. There are ways that you can submit a form that say you don't require that. But a lot of the messaging is you cannot step foot in our schools until you have this, and that's not true statements. And so we need to be very careful with that. So I don't know if that's driving some of the numbers being down, but we definitely want to make sure that whoever are running social media understand that that's not the only way you can come to our schools. There are workarounds on that. So just,
Do we go back and look? I know that Mr. Blankenship used to do a report, shows how many more kids we're projecting and everything else.
Yeah.
When they show up, or when we start the school year, do we go back and look to see how accurate
Yeah.
those numbers have been?
I mean, I do a detail, I'm watching the first 10 days.
Just
So
on those,
with Dr. Calvert and I, because you're staffing during the summer, so you're working off the budget, but you're watching the numbers come in. So every week, we pull the numbers of what enrollment is. Now, traditionally, the first day of school, you see about 200 kids disappear. They don't have their vaccines, they don't have their paperwork, they don't show up, they're on vacation, they come back 2 days later, especially a Wednesday start. Our biggest jump this year has been Monday, because they took 3 days and came back on Monday. We don't encourage them to do that, but that's what happens. So I look at historical trend throughout the summer. What happens the first day? What happens to day 10? And do we make that back up, and where are we going? So we look back 2 or 3 years on that, and whatever these numbers will factor into our budget for next year forecast. That, you know, if there's truly a decline at the end, then that will kind of have a factor into how we project the following year. So, yeah.
And we allocate staff accordingly. Like if the numbers are up, then we might allocate another teacher to a school. Or if the numbers are down, we might move a teacher, or we might not rehire when someone leaves. Like that's a constant thing all summer long.
do we have any schools that are over what we had
Yep.
budgeted?
Yeah, we gave one to New London,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we give out, when we see that it's hard numbers and we're really sure about it. The hard thing is when you're seeing things enrolled, sometimes they don't know that they've moved. Like you were just asking, what do secretaries do? They don't show up. Hey, oh, we moved. Okay. But what happens is we have our numbers in our system. We're anticipating this, and then I say the first day, if they don't physically show up, they're unenrolled. And then they enroll the second day. So you see a big exodus the first day, and then it usually comes back. So when we're looking at our numbers and assigning staff, we're going, is there gonna be a big exodus, and do they come back? Because once you sign a contract with a teacher, you've kind of committed. So we're playing that game.
Does this even
Yeah.
work with 9 or 10 or whatever? Because you can cut the classes, look and see if it's impossible, we do all that. We
So
do
it's a
all
balance between doing what's right for the kid in the school, but also watching the financial side, so we don't overcommit. Because if you have a school where it's like, "Huh, our numbers are here, I need 2 more teachers, and they don't show up, I just hire 2 teachers they don't need. And what do we do then? Then we can move them around during the year to bring our budget in. But we're always watching that, and we watch that every week. And yes, we look at what is the historical trend, so we can get it as close as possible. Yep.
All right, vendor analysis.
I'll defer to you on that. I sent out the spreadsheet to the 2 of you and with all the details and also vendors and their names. Kind of like who are we doing the business with, top dollar wise,
Yep.
and working down. And so I'll defer to the 2 committee members do you want additional data from that on any vendor product, what are they doing?
No, I gotta go back, and I appreciate you bringing that up, but you did send that out. There were like 5 or 6 that like were big top dollars
Yeah.
that I need to figure out, and I'll reach out and find out what those were.
Yeah, a lot of the top dollar ones is either gonna be construction.
Yeah.
You know, with some of the construction, nutrition, the food purchase is gonna be up there. And like, the bus leases that we're phasing out of that are still there, those are the big hitters. But there are some other ones that, I'll be happy to pull in more
But
data.
we need to look at that.
And depending on what department it is in, I'll bring whoever's there that's responsible for that budget line item and they can talk to you about that, purchase.
Okay. This might be, I'm just gonna ask it since I'm thinking about it, with the facilities and the spend that we've got going at the 2 high schools and Bedford Primary. We were doing some of that, where we purchase it and it's tax,
Yes, we're doing direct owner purchase.
direct owner purchasing.
And that'll
Are we
produce
keeping up
savings on
with-
the overall project.
Are we keeping up with that
Taylor
today?
Bell's keeping up that with, and what happens is with the Jamerson contract, as we direct purchase, it goes in as a change order as a reduction, because we bought it ourselves, it's not gonna be paid to them.
Can you have some preliminary numbers of what we have so far?
It hasn't been a lot because the, mechanical equipment hasn't started showing up, it's been tear down.
Okay.
And, temporary fencing, so they can work while the school's open. So they got as much done as the canopies, which was physical labor of working on those. It's the mechanical equipment, so I don't think it's a lot yet.
I just like,
But
just a.
I'll add that to this list so I can keep track of that. I think the facility committee is also interested in the same thing, and they've asked for that data too.
All right, 26, 27 budget calendar.
Thought I'd bring this to you because we need to bring it to the whole board with the calendar for next year too. And that's in your sheet if you, I think it's the 3rd page. Oh, by the way, just, I gave enrollment numbers. Sales tax is a big part of our revenue budget from the state too, and off of 2 months, the sales tax is 8% ahead of budget. So that's $372,000. They take some of that back away from me in direct aid, but I keep some of it, so that's a positive, we're not down. So that's not a negative, we're seeing a good trend on that off of 2 months. But you know how December drives a lot of that, so we'll wait and see. But at least a good trend on that part. The budget calendar. We were very aggressive last year to get numbers over to the Board of Supervisors.
Yep.
And my concern for next year, it's gonna be a long budget cycle for the General Assembly. The governor, who is gonna be outgoing, is gonna recommend a budget to the General Assembly. Don't know what the makeup of the General Assembly is gonna be, but if it stays the way it is, you have 2 different parties and the outgoing governor making a recommendation. You could see a drastic change in what they do to that budget. But based upon previous years for a long year, and the state has delayed giving me those cut sheets. They go through a much more thorough review process before I get them. I used to get them very quickly. But based upon a long budget, I did not receive the House and Senate version cut sheets of what we're gonna get until mid-February. General Assembly in April finalizing that, and then finally Governor signed it in June. That was a late one. The governor proposes in December, so if we're gonna present something in January, we're gonna be presenting off of the governor's proposed budget, and I don't know how valid that's gonna be. That's just me speaking from, I don't wanna get too much into politics, but
So-
that does play a place.
Remind me, Randy, what was our request to the Board of Supervisors?
Total amount, we were asking for, I think it was about was it around 4 million? 4.2?
4.2.
4.2, and
4.2.
we got what?
A million.
So us getting it to them early, is that worth our time?
I think engaging them, on what our needs are and I think sometimes the public and maybe others think that we just want wants. And I think Mr. Paris put it this way, these are needs
And I think that's how we
that we're
presented
struggling,
it last
you know,
year.
long-term CIP, retaining our teachers, being competitive. health insurance rate. A lot of these are needs because we're becoming less competitive for our staff.
Right.
And doing what's our school. We're going up on our ratios, which means more kids in a classroom to balance our budget. So I don't think these are just wants, I think they're needs. I think we can still do that. But if we base something off the governors, then we might say, I hate going out and saying, okay, we're gonna base it on this, and then all of a sudden we get 4 million more from the General Assembly. Everybody's saying, you're crying wolf. Or vice versa, we're getting this from the state and then we get a lot less. So it's just gonna be a different year, so I'm looking for guidance from you all. Do we go a little bit later?
You've also got new board members coming in from a school board perspective, so you don't wanna make too many decisions before January with the fact that you've got new board members
Yeah.
coming in.
I think in the past, we can go back to a later date. It was nice getting it done and getting it over so we could have those discussions with, this committee had with their finance committee. I think it was a
Yeah,
nice
well,
conversation. I think we can do
I
the
agree with
same.
this conversation.
We can, we can do this, we can do the same in advocating and just saying, it's hard to predict what the state's gonna do at this point.
So I'm kind of waiting on D, E, and F of your agenda before I go back to the county and set up some quarterly or an additional 2 meetings with finance, just to, because the discussion that I had with the chairman is what's the difference between a want and a need?
Yeah.
And we had that whole discussion, so what I wanna see is what upper hand, what would we have, what's our true need?
Well, and
Before I start that conversation again.
I agree 100%, but and I think it's important that Mr. Daniels and I remind the board at our next school board meeting, next year is gonna be a tough discussion when it comes to budget.
Agreed?
And, we tried to start the conversation 2 years ago about reducing our total number of schools. And Randy, keep me average of 850,000 to 900,000.
It's going up each year because
It's going up each
inflation and
year.
stuff, it costs more,
So, we started that conversation and, several people in the community know we love our community schools. We do too, but you gotta fund them. And so that conversation has, we've either gotta decide, what's important. Are we gonna have community schools and we're gonna get budget from the county? Or are we gonna increase classroom sizes if that's what's needed and
And
we're
that's
going
part
to
of
have
that
to
quarter.
reduce some of the schools that we have? Those are conversations that this board has to have and we cannot wait until April, May, whatever, to say we gotta make a decision for August, because to be fair to you guys, it doesn't happen that fast. But we cannot wait to make decisions around budget when we asked for $4.2 million last year and we got $1 million. Guess what? That's probably what you're gonna get next year. And so as inflation continues to go up, we've got to start having these conversations.
So, are you good with me going over there and starting that conversation even as early as September, October?
Yeah, I'm fine with all conversations. I don't know what those conversations get you though.
Well, I think what we need to decide is to narrow down what our needs are, because I wanna go over there with those needs. And I think I showed you guys, I put together a PowerPoint that she had made, and several of them, and kind of put them together. And it actually caught their attention when I could say to them, if we gave our teachers a 7% increase and everybody else around us gave a 4, I think it was, we'd still be 14th out of 16.
Right, you only moved us up one spot,
And it
but we
wouldn't
didn't
have
even
moved
get
us,
to do
so
that.
that kind of caught their attention to some degree. And so they know we're behind. Now we have to explain, with all the things that he just explained about in Richmond and the switches that could be going on there, it's gonna look a lot different. And then when you throw in those other items that are negotiating tools,
Well,
we
and
need to
not
start this
mention-
conversation early.
Not to mention, you cannot lose sight of 27, 28, or is it 28, 29?
Wait, we got 2 more years.
28, 29.
Yep.
And that's reversion and I'm watching
That's coming
it.
like a freight train.
Yeah.
So,
And I think some of the, when you look at it, this is what we need to do, this is what we want to do, but then there's things you have to do.
yeah, no, I
And,
get it.
and I try to brief this committee and the board on those in January, because I can do mid-year, what's happening with electrical, what's happening with fuel, what's happening with insurance, what's happening. So those are like, You have no choice. You've got to adjust to what's happening on inflation or what's happening with things you have to buy. I commend this committee. It's like, let's get rid of the lease payments on the buses. It's gonna take 7 years to clean that up, but in the end, it'll be better for us. So it's costing a little bit now, but it'll be much better on the back end of that. That's because the interest rates went up and started hitting us. So we can do so many of those things, but we've got to say, we gotta continue to support those. You cannot not buy buses, because then your fleet will get old and you're gonna be in a very big
No, I
bind.
agree.
So those things that we absolutely have to do, I can present pretty early. It's balancing the whole thing on what is our revenue really gonna look from the state? And I don't know if we're gonna have a clean picture. Might depend on the outcome of the election, and we might have an early read. You just don't know where that's going right now, and there's a lot up in the air.
So let me ask the question, because the next item here is committee requests. How about my request to you is if you just went through a small list of things that need to be considered in this discussion, if you have some kind of list in your mind, send it to me.
I think it's a conversation we need to have as a board to say.
No, I get that.
What are the,
What are the,
because what I think is important, two more
No, I
people
get
may
that.
think it's at the bottom of the list, but.
I get that.
We cannot continue to fund schools that are not at capacity, can't continue to spend money that we don't have, and that's what we're doing. We're spending money we do not have.
And we sneak into getting our budget even.
Yep.
And that's what we did, and I understand, if we had a surplus, would we get cut? Maybe we would.
See, it's hard because the way the board balanced the budget last year, in a sense, is we went up on class sizes. Now, no one feels that globally. It's like, it's not like sports is gone, oh my goodness. It's like some classes went up, there's more kids in a class. Well, you can go to that so many times and all of a sudden you have 25 in a kindergarten and
But we
people are going,
also
what happened?
supplemented that.
How did
with-
we get here? Well,
But we also supplemented that with money that does not continue.
correct. They're not feeling it this year, they will feel it next year.
That's my point. We're spending money we don't have.
That is a delayed impact because, yes, you're right.
We're spending money we
We
don't
did
have.
go up, everyone will feel the full impact.
But my
think-
point is, we asked for $4.2 million and we only got $1 million, not of wants, of needs.
Well, I think that's, again, I think we did all our due diligence. I think that for, our constituents, the citizens, everyone that we serve, we could hang our hat and say, we did everything that we could. We were, exceptionally transparent last year. And I think we're gonna continue to be exceptionally
and that's
transparent
what
in
I'm
everything
asking,
we
let's
do.
continue to do that.
Now, I would
put it
I
out
would
there.
agree, and I understand it's a lot of work, and it could be Charlie Brown in the football, right, where they just pull a football. It is what it is. We can't control that. All we can do is make the best case that we can make. I have also argued that, again, I know it would be spending some money, but I'm gonna say it, and I've said it to both of you guys. I think we need to look at, there's external auditors that can come in and look and say, this is where you can get efficiency in your facilities, this is, and this is where you get efficiency in your curriculum. Hey, that's an outside party looking at it, maybe it's gonna confirm everything that we said, but it's another data point that we can point to and say, something's gotta change here. I'm willing to go through that exercise because nobody has their golden calf that they're holding on to. It becomes very apparent that of what we've been saying, and maybe they'll turn over something that we haven't thought of either. But I think Mr. Hill is right. Continue to fund things that we, because we couldn't pull the trigger on something, because we got community pushback, and then we didn't get extra money, we then spent other money on, HVAC systems for a school that's gonna be 37% occupied. And then we go over these other budgets, and I know they're separate, but it's all part of the same big thing, and we're losing money here and there, because we're losing money in 21 schools. We cannot continue to do that. It's not being a good steward of the money that we have, and we're doing a complete disservice to the students, because if we can reduce some of these other costs, and even if there's a teacher shortage, right? So even if some of our teachers moved on to other places or whatever, if we had the same budget for the remaining teachers, they'd get raises. If we had, there's
You're
other
getting-
things that we can do.
You're getting very close, I'll say this, we look at that, you're getting very close to the standards of quality for teachers in the classroom. You're not gonna be able to go to that well much more.
No.
Right.
You're just not, you're gonna be at the
And
max
to
for
be
the state,
fair,
and you can't go
and
there
to be
anymore.
fair, we didn't wanna go to the well last year with that.
I understand.
Our hands were tied.
And I know the public and people look at it and they go to the budget and they look at the operating, and you're talking about that, but it's all, we got the nutrition, we got the health insurance fund, you got textbook, and alluding to reversion, it's really the capital improvement and maintenance of all those maintaining everything we've been doing and
Yeah, I'll
continue to do that in future, there is no future funding stream for that.
Correct.
There isn't, it's not identified. To me, you know, where I'm sitting, that's the biggest concern for me is, yes, we went up on class sizes. I think we need to be competitive with teachers. We need to make strides about that, but at the same time, we got this capital improvement long-term.
It's a ball.
You need about $4 or $5 million a year. You got 21 facilities. And alluding to that, I don't want to say, yes, I'm for it. But less facilities or less money for capital improvement. Because you've got less in inventory.
Right.
And you don't have to maintain that. I know people don't like to hear that, but it comes down to economics. You've got to maintain the equipment you got in the buildings you have.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's not the things that you want to hear, but it's the truth, and the truth is what the most important thing. Because we can sit here and we can either take action, or as one of my good buddies says, you can wish in one hand and poop in the other and see what fills up first. That is the truth of what we're up against, and we've got tough decisions to make. The public needs to understand that. We have said we want to put money into the students and our teachers instead of bricks. Now, not saying we want rundown facilities either, but there's only, the dollar can only get split so many ways.
I mean, and then even right now, we can look at last year's budget and what wasn't funded, and we're going, that was a need. And the board can have discussions about that before even this January, and say, that needs to be in there, that is a need that's critical. And, you know, when I do my mid-year, then I do my, you know, things you have to do, and there's a lot that'll flow into that, but you can start with last year's again, those are things that we really needed and we didn't get. Those are on the list for next year.
Look, I mean, there's a lot of hopes. I hope electricity's going down. I hope fuel's going down. That's a hope. We don't know. But in the same breath, you got insurance rates, they're going up.
Definitely.
So, I mean,
I think,
I don't think there's a problem having conversations, Mr. Dupere. I absolutely say go for it. I don't know, all you can do is be transparent. I don't know that
that's
it
what I
gets you
want.
anything. And I'm saying that
started
publicly.
that.
I don't think it gets you anything. Because we started it back in November, trying to be transparent to say, here's what we need, here's what we need. Not what we want, here's what we need. These are needs. And we got $1 million out of 4.2.
My investment goes a little, what I'm attempting to do is goes a little different, a little bit deeper than just sitting here at a table and saying, here's my needs. This is more about literally representing your constituents.
Yep.
And that's where I am trying to go into the conversation. So Stephen and I have talked about some possible meetings here in the future, once he's done with one of his. So if we can start pairing up in different districts and having this conversation, that's what he would like to do, that's what I would like to do. So we're gonna pursue that once he makes his first contact.
Well, I don't think it hurts anything.
It can't hurt,
It can't hurt, but
you know, it did,
I wish you well.
it did bring a very good conversation with the chairman. That's all I'm gonna say. We spent two different days together, and it was like, okay, I didn't know that. So it's transparency, but at the same time, you gotta own it.
Right.
You gotta own it.
Well,
You have to own it.
yeah, I'm gonna say that to me, we've got to make decisions and we've got to stick to it. And unfortunately, sometimes those decisions are gonna be unpopular, but we owe it to the schools itself, the system, to make decisions to reduce dollars that we're spending that we don't have, that we can't continue to fund. So it's hard conversations and it's gotta be done. And that's coming, if it's gonna hit next year, but the next 2 years, when that reversion comes, it's gonna be bad. And those are the conversations that need to take place. So, all right,
If I could go back to the counter, it'd be my recommendation, if you'd like, and we can present it to the whole board, that we push back instead of adopting our preliminary budget on the 29th of January, probably around the 25th, 26th of February.
Yep.
We could still have those conversations as we're going along, meeting with and talking to people. But officially, you adopting and transmitting your request to the Board of Supervisors later in February would give me time to get, hopefully, cut sheets and get a more accurate state number.
you know, and one of the things, and we've advertised it for 8 years that I've been on the board of, you know, public comment. Come tell us what's important to you. And I don't know if there's a different way to present that or to ask for feedback or for people to come attend meetings to understand, here's where we're at, these are the dollars that we have, this is what we're looking at. If anybody's got any recommendations on how to drive that conversation and to get people to come comment and it's not just at this meeting, it's also at Board of Supervisors meetings, so they're aware of what's needed. Those are the conversations that need to take place. So if anybody's got any ideas of how to drive public comment for that,
I don't necessarily like adding another meeting, but I'd give you a recommendation that we'll be briefing in our regular meetings on the numbers that I get and just keeping the board up to date. Committee will be meeting, you might call additional work sessions, but the public hearing we officially do at your first meeting in January. Give us feedback on the budget. I don't know if people are thinking about budget.
no.
They don't think about it until you propose it.
Right.
So it would push it off a little bit, and I'm saying it's gonna be tight to get it at the end of February, hopefully get the worksheets from the state. But it's almost like, here's our proposed budget. Then they show up and speak about it. But I don't know if you're gonna do a lot of cuts at that point, because that's a preliminary where you're saying, this is our need, this is what we need funding for.
What if we were to take the approach of, if we were to get like-for-like dollar budgeting that we got this year, and the funding that we're using that's no longer there, where does that put us? And then we start proposing, here's what we're going to have to do to meet that budget,
Just to meet it.
just to meet it. And I say we start that in November and December. I don't know if we have those preliminary, or do you wait until January?
Well, I mean, just, top of my head, I mean, when you're talking about saying, okay, we're just gonna give employees a step, which is 1.3%, no cost of living, just a step. You're talking $1 million plus, $1.2 million. So if we get no new funding and there's no cut in expenditures, you needed to identify 1.2 million in cuts just to give your employees a 1.3% raise.
Well, that's
That's
if the governor only gives a 3.6% increase, right?
Well, that's saying the state doesn't recognize any increase.
Right.
We have the exact same funding we have right now. Nothing else changes. Things change, we know that.
Okay. I'm
Well, even
saying
if
we
they
still
give
have
it,
to
we are
meet-
still on the hook for half of it.
Yeah, we're on the half.
And if we don't have the money to do the half, we can't do any.
Correct. Then,
And that's where we got.
if you don't have new funding,
the steps and we were in a mess.
you've gotta
and-
cut to free up money to meet the half to get it from the state.
That's the conversation we need to start at. And we need to
We're
talk
always
about-
playing to keep our head just above water.
And we can't keep doing that.
I think, from board standpoint, I don't know if there's, engaging the General Assembly and stuff, I think there's some that recognize it. And believe me, I'm not advocating, I don't want more taxes and stuff, but I think Virginia's one of the lowest funded. They fund education is one of the lowest in the entire nation. And so, it's a double whammy there, so when you're doing that. So when you look at standards of quality, what Virginia recognizes as a standard of quality, like the bare minimum, is like pretty pathetic.
Right.
It's really costing a lot more to do it, and they don't recognize that. But that's Richmond, and that's a bigger hill to move.
I'm good with your recommendation of moving it
Later.
out. Yeah.
Do we need to add another meeting or something, or we'll just add them as we go? I only have the one work session. What we typically do is we'll propose the budget, and then you come back a week later and you pass the budget. So what we could do when you said you want more input is that we come to the first work session, this is what we're proposing, you guys work through it, go home, come back a week later, people have time, and they can come out and speak, and then you guys can pass it that night.
Well,
I just don't know if they're gonna
I
show
think
up.
we need to start talking of, like I just said, if we have the budget that we had last year and we don't get any additional funding, take out what we spent with grants, what are we left with?
Yeah.
And then what are the staff's proposals of how we meet
Yep.
that budget? And start talking about what are the things that the board is gonna have to make decisions on, and give it 2 months, November, December, January.
And some of those things that we might have to make decisions on are gonna take a couple of years to
Right.
come to fruition.
Sure.
Well, and then the things that, if we do get funding, what are the top ranked things that we wanna add back to the budget?
Yeah.
Is it smaller classrooms, is it, what is it? Just like we had it last year, we had it in the different categories.
Yes. Blue and yellow.
And as you go larger on the classrooms, and if you ever wanna come back on that, then you're fighting like, I wanna give a raise and go down on classroom size, and it's just costing more and more and more.
Yep.
I know Dr. Calvert looks at and compares this with the surrounding and being competitive for our staff and our teachers. And yeah, when you're looking at multiple percent increases, it's a big number. So if the need next year was, the primary need was like, we wanna give 5, 6, 7%, and we got no new revenue, where are you gonna cut 4 million, 5 million from? It ain't there. So, there's only so much only so many places you can go. So, then it gets very painful and very ugly. And I don't know if it's doable. So, then you just fall further behind everybody else in how competitive you are. So, it's tough, but the discussions need to be had. So I'll push it off a little bit later, and a little bit later in February. Hopefully I'll have some good information from the state at that time. Hard to tell. Politics get in the way, and sometimes it gets delayed till June.
I actually think that if we could, what your suggestion is to take that budget last year, do kind of an overlay to project out. I'd like to see that at our next meeting.
It's like taking the current budget right now. This is
Just
our
what
budget.
we were at.
No new revenue, but what do we want? What are our needs for next year?
Right.
Well, first
And
of
go
all,
from
you
there.
gotta take out, was it 1.8 million that we found to subsidize the class size?
I
Yeah,
don't think it was that much.
We didn't use
was
that
it?
much, but we're using all in. Some of it's still
I thought it
available
was
for
like 7
remediation.
or 8 positions,
It was
wasn't
about
it?
800,000.
I think it's
800,000, okay. So
8 positions.
we need to take that off the top.
Well, that's coming in from our ending year balance. So the expenditures there, ending year balance, that just comes out. So it's kind of wash on both sides. So both of those will come out.
okay.
Committee requests, I think you just heard them.
The two I've got, just to reiterate, we're gonna look at centralizing nutrition kitchens where we can, if it makes sense. And reporting back to, I already do it to the facility committee, but also to this finance committee on the direct owner purchase and savings we're recognizing there as we go forward with the PBA
And then
programs.
one of the things that I did, and I wanna commend, Mr. Lee on, the transportation. Did I read it was 6 routes that we were able to reduce, 5? Okay.
Combination of routes that added up to a total of 5. So there
Right.
might have been one, half of one here.
But it totaled 5.
Yes.
But, and as he grows in that role and we get more confident in what we've got, we could possibly see some of that reduce even more. Is that right?
I think we definitely have some room. Right now, we're in the point where we're having to consolidate routes because of the lack of drivers in some situations. We definitely need more drivers as well.
So unfortunately, we never want to hear consolidation, but that's the name of the game when it comes to dollars. You've got to start looking at what can we consolidate, so. Lunchroom's one, but, are there other things, so.
And if, just for the next meeting, we'll schedule the next meeting, but if you have any questions on any of the vendors, let me know
Yeah,
ahead
I'm
of
gonna,
time and I'll bring it.
yeah,
Yeah, we gotta get.
yeah, we'll get together, dive into that. All right, so next meeting, September 11th is our school board meeting, right? So 23rd or 30th, does that work?
September.
September when?
23rd?
If you would like, it's a very busy time for me, but still, I'd like to get the first quarter forecast to the board as soon as possible.
Okay.
That's where I'll get a true read on what payroll I think is gonna be for the year and, I briefed on the numbers here, but they're not official numbers and stuff.
Okay.
I can't do that until I finalize September's, payroll.
Right.
If you wanna move it to, when would we be meeting in October?
October
Be the
9th.
The 9th? It'd be a quick turnaround, but if you wanna meet on the 7th, I could probably give you the financial forecast, a first quarter look, and present it 2 days later to the full board.
Okay.
I don't know if you like that or not.
So,
I can do it.
okay,
That's pushing it off a month, we're not gonna meet in September, but at least I'll have a financial forecast and a little bit follow-up on some of these other things.
and
I don't
everybody,
know if I have anything big, for the next agenda except for that.
okay,
That's the main thing to say, our first snapshot of the year on how we're doing on both expenditures and revenues.
okay.
What time are we thinking?
3 to 5 works
Yeah,
for
that
me.
works good.
Okay? and that'll be that won't be, I'll probably have already posted the financial, numbers to board docs where other board members are looking at it, but we go into more detail here, and I'll review that with you all.
Anything else we need to talk about?
Can't think of anything right now unless you guys have anything you want me to bring back. Any other concerns?
I have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All right, we're adjourned.